And welcome back to the Suncoast Midday Magazine. And in the history of televised game shows, no name is more synonymous with host than Wink Martindale. He has hosted 19 game shows, including Tic-Tac-Dough, High Rollers, Gambit, and Can You Top This? And the Cable Ace award-winning Det. Currently, he hosts a daily radio show on the Music of Your Life network. His book and CD, Winking at Life, recount fascinating stories of the people he has worked with in show business over the years. And it is a great pleasure to welcome back Wink Martindale to the Suncoast Magazine. And Wink, last time you were with us, we were on our morning show, and I'm glad we could talk to you at a more civilized hour out there in California. How are you?
Thanks, Doug. It's a pleasure to talk to you again. Did I hear on the news just before you came back on that Steve Spurrier's taken the Gator job?
No, he's actually told them he's not interested.
Oh, I just caught the tail end. I thought he took it.
Yeah, they were talking about, he was kind of being coy last weekend when interviewers were asking him, but no, he has said he wants to be taken out of consideration.
Oh, okay.
The rumor is he may be getting the Dolphins job. That's the latest down here.
I got you.
So,
well, we've got to get those Gators back on track.
Oh, tough season for both. Well, actually, all Florida football teams lost last weekend.
Not a good weekend.
Not at all. No. Have you, in your career, done sports play-by-play at all? I never asked you that before.
I did when I was in my hometown. When I first got started in radio, I knew right out of high school, I knew all the players. So on basketball and football teams, and so being a small town, I just by attrition got that job. I was a play-by-play guy, and I loved it. And then I did it some in Memphis for high schools there. And I've often thought, people ask me, what if you hadn't done game shows? What would you have done? And my answer is stock, and it's simply, if I'd known where sports was going in radio and television, I would love to have been a sportscaster. I love the genre.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I started doing that in college radio. Obviously, you do the college teams, and we do some high school football here in Sarasota. But it's got to be one of the toughest jobs in broadcasting is doing play-by-play, I would imagine.
Yeah, it really is. And, of course, if you do it good, if you really are good at it, then it takes a lot of prep. And it's like a Vin Scully, he makes it sound so easy. Enberg does. And it's because these guys, they make it sound easy because they prepare.
Yeah, you talk about some of the classic broadcasters out there. I grew up in New York, and you talk about Vin Scully a little bit before my time in New York, but Marv Albert was the guy I listened to growing up. And you talk about Chick Hearn out where you are in L.A. for so many years, was the Laker announcer.
Yeah.
They really become a part of the city, don't they?
Absolutely. It's part of the landscape.
And Dick Enberg, of course, did some game shows as well, didn't he?
Yeah, Dick did early on. He did... I remember a show
Sports
called
Challenge.
A show he did called Baffle, B-A-F-F-L-E.
That's right. I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah. But, he did that before he became really big in sports.
Yeah, so it's I guess it's kind of the same in a way. I mean, you're sort of doing play-by-play when you do a game show in a way, I suppose.
Well, I think the way they're indigenous is that, you do have to do a lot of, it's like being a jock or anything on radio, you got to learn how to ad-lib, and you got to ad-lib your way in and out of situations. And, of course, in sports, that's certainly true.
Absolutely, yeah. Recently down here on the local PBS station and around the country, you were part of really a fascinating show, The Music of the 50s.
Yeah, that was really a fun show to do. We did that at the Trump Plaza in Atlantic City about 3 or 4 months ago, and unfortunately my deck of cards got cut out of the main show, but it was in the tapes that they offered for sale for PBS. But that was really fun. That was like a step back in time, Doug, because it was the music that I was playing when I was a DJ in Memphis in the 1950s.
Yeah, it was really PBS hadn't done one of those types of shows in a while. They've kind of gone to more newer, maybe 60s, 70s music retrospectives, but this was more post-big band, I would guess, but he had Rosemary Clooney type of music on there and a lot of the men groups, and it was fun.
The McGuire sisters, when they found out it was PBS, they're retired, so they don't do concerts anymore, but when they found out it was PBS, and being big PBS supporters as they are, Phyllis asked the girls, the sisters, if they'd like to do it, and they all said yes, and so it was kind of fun to hang out with them and find out about their career, and just because I admired their work so much. I thought their harmony was so terrific.
Oh, yeah, and they sounded great at the end. They did a couple of numbers at the end of the show.
I'll tell you a guy that I hung out with the most, though, is he's now 80 years old, and he certainly doesn't look 80, but he used to be a pro golfer. You remember Band of Gold by Don Cherry?
Oh, sure.
Well, Don Cherry got up there on the stage. If you saw the show, you probably saw it. He's singing at 80 years old. He sounded just like the record.
I didn't know he was 80. He didn't look it. I thought he was maybe
he had just
late 60s or something.
Celebrated that week his 80th birthday.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard that record before, and it did sound a lot. And most of the artists up there sounded just like the recording.
Yeah.
They did a good job with that.
It was really a fun thing to do.
And you did a little fun thing with like a little game show parody, I guess, with what, Rip Taylor? That guy's funny.
Rip Taylor is a piece of work. God made him and threw away the mold.
Oh, boy, he's great. And who else? Brett Summers, I think you had on there. Was it?
Brett Summers, yeah.
And Joyce Brothers.
And Dr. Joyce Brothers. Yeah.
Was that done in all in one night, like a one performance?
It sure was. It was. We rehearsed. Remember, I got in there one day. We rehearsed all day the next day, or everybody did, because there's so many people involved, and you're using a live orchestra. And it took a lot of rehearsal into the night, and then the next day we did it in front of a live audience at Trump Plaza, and it was just really a lot of fun, and people really and truly enjoyed it.
Yeah, they played that several times locally. There's actually 2 PBS stations in Tampa and Sarasota, and it's getting a lot of. I guess it's doing quite well. They wouldn't play it a lot if it didn't generate donations. So
yeah,
that's great.
Right. I complained to my wife. I said, in watching this, it's a terrific show, but there are too many commercial breaks.
Right. Yeah, that is one of the criticism. They tend to break in quite a bit.
Yeah, but when you think about it, what else is new about television?
That's right. But I guess you can order the entire program as part of a premium and see it in its entirety. Right. So that's great. Yeah. You talk about the music of the 50s and doing that type of radio. You do a show now on Music of Your Life Network. We do 2 hours a week of big band and jazz on our station, Wink, and it gets quite a response. How's it going with the Music of Your Life Network?
It's good, Doug. I've enjoyed it. I've done it since 1996. Music of Your Life is a 24-hour, as you said, a 24-hour music network, satellite network. And we have some good guys doing it. I host 3 hours a day. And, in fact, this is a period that I'm on right now while I'm talking to you.
Oh, great.
Mine's pre-recorded. But Gary Owens, remember him from Laugh In?
Sure. We're going to try and get him on the show. I think you got us his number, or somebody got us his number. We're going to get him on, yeah.
Well, Gary, and there's Peter Marshall, who used to do Hollywood Squares.
Right.
Just a bunch of real good guys, and it's music of some of the big bands, the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and we play a lot of the current stuff, too. Diana Krall and Peterson Cotty, people like that.
Yeah, I'm able to tune in on it on the internet if there's no local station. So, right. Yeah, I've heard your show. It's great. Because this type of music obviously doesn't get the airplay that it has in the past, and it really deserves, I think.
Yeah. Well, radio is kind of like television now. There's a little niche for everybody. Whatever you want, you can find it if you just look for it. That's right.
Yeah, you talk about Peter Marshall. We actually play some of his CDs. He's quite a good singer, too.
He is an excellent CD. He's reminiscent of Dick Haymes, the great singer of the 40s, and Peter has an excellent voice and started as a singer. He never hosted a game show in his life, never even thought about it. He had always been a performer in New York, and he got asked to do this game show by Merrill Heater of Heater Quigley Productions when they were getting ready to do Hollywood Squares, and he said, "What? You host a game show?" He first of all turned it down, and then he thought better of it, and good that it did, because it cemented his career and his bank account for a long time.
Yes. I think Bert Parks. I read his book. I think he said Bert Parks was the original host, wasn't he? Or
no, not Hollywood Squares. I think Hollywood Squares started actually with Peter.
Well, in a pilot episode, I thought they said, maybe I read it wrong, but in his book.
Well, you know what? It could have been that Bert Parks did the pilot.
That might be what it.
You're right.
But
I should know, Doug, never to question you, because I understand from the people who work with you, you're never wrong.
Well, they're not always right either. Well, you talk about the classic game show hosts like yourself, Gene Rayburn, who was one of my favorites, Monty Hall, and Bob Eubanks, Bob Barker. They all began in radio. That's kind of how we started the conversation. And do you think we'll ever see game shows reach the prominence on TV like it did back in the 60s and 70s?
I keep hoping that maybe one day we'll see some classic game shows come back, and I call people game shows like Hollywood Squares and Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, of course, are classic shows. Tic-Tac-Toe, I think, was.
Oh, sure.
Those kinds of shows. What's my line? Classic shows. Now we have so many of the reality shows. There are no time periods left for your classic shows. You get some of those if you go to Game Show Network, but even they're not playing them like they used to. But I keep hoping that one of these days, they say that what goes around comes around, or vice versa, and eventually maybe we'll get some of those good game shows back again.
One that you did, I might have asked you this before, forgive me if I did, but a long time ago when I was a kid, I remember Can You Top This, which was kind of had comedians on. I really enjoyed that show that you did.
Oh, yeah, that was an old radio show that Maury Amsterdam bought the rights to and made a television show out of. It was 1970, and we did it a couple of seasons. That's where a home viewer would send in a joke, and the joke was told by a panel of professionals like Danny Thomas or Maury, or Milton Berle.
Milton
Jack
Berle,
Benny.
right.
We had great comedians because Maury, they loved him, and they would come on the show for scale. So they would tell a joke in that same home viewer category, the category of the home viewer joke, and by applause in the audience, old-fashioned idea, but by their applause, that would determine the winner. Who told the best joke, the home viewer and our home viewer joke teller, you may recall, was Richard Dawson.
That's right. I remember
before
that.
He did Hogan's Heroes or, of course, Family Feud.
Yeah, you're right. He was the joke teller, I guess, that would tell all the home jokes. Yeah, I remember that now. That's right.
He would tell the home viewer joke, and then the panel of experts would try to top him.
And of course, I guess Regis Philbin kind of brought back the game show genre a little bit with Millionaire, but that's kind of on the back burner now. I haven't seen that on in a while.
It is. Well, it's on in syndication, done by the gal who's on The View. I forget her name.
Oh, yeah, Meredith Vieira.
Meredith Vieira,
yeah,
right.
Right.
But I don't think I don't think it'll ever reach the prominence that it did. But it was a great, great show and had all the elements of a terrific game show. And I'm not surprised that it did so well. And I thought Regis, my hero in the business as a host has always been Bill Cullen, the late Bill Cullen.
Oh, sure.
He was just great. And Regis, I think, matched Bill because he's such a wit and he's funny. He kept the game moving. He was great with the players. He let them play out their time. He just did a great job.
One of the shows Bill Cullen did, I remember again from a kid. I was sick a lot as a kid, Wink, so I watched a lot of TV. Was I Guess. I loved that show that he did.
I Guess Bill, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great show that he did.
You know that Bill Cullen was the first host of The Price is Right?
I remember he did some syndicated versions, didn't he, later on?
No, yeah, well, actually, the original Price is Right was on CBS Nighttime in the mid to late 1950s.
Okay, no, then maybe I'm thinking of Dennis James did the night show.
Yeah, Dennis James did it in syndication.
That's right.
Once or twice.
Yeah, Bill Cullen was a great. I guess you and Bill Cullen are 1 and 2, aren't you? And how many game shows you've done, right?
Yeah, neither one of us could hold a job.
Yeah.
I think Bill did 21, and I've hosted 19 different shows, some of which lasted about 5 minutes. That's the reason most of the shows I did you never heard of.
Oh no, some of them were classics though. We talked about Tic-Tac-Toe.
I got lucky with 5 or 6.
And I like Debt, which you did a few years ago on cable.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
thought
that.
Debt was an excellent show, and I don't know why they took it off. We were 1 million people a night were watching that on Lifetime. But they had new management come in, and at that time they didn't want game shows, so they got rid of the 2 game shows. It was Debt and the Supermarket Sweepstakes.
Oh, right.
We were back-to-back in that hour, and they just got rid of game shows, and they've never done as well in that time period as we did with our shows. So, but you never know,
Talking with Wink Martindale, just a couple of minutes left with him, and I just wanted to ask you, before we talk about the book for a minute, you talk about radio, we talked about that earlier. KMPC, I guess, is the big station out there. You got your start out in L.A. WNEW AM New York was a station that I grew up listening to. It seems like those stations are kind of a dying breed now, aren't they?
Yeah, really. In fact, KMPC now has long since gone down the tubes. But it came back. It's sort of back again, but now it's back in at a different location on the dial, but they have those call letters, and it's an all-sports format.
Oh, is it? I didn't realize
here in
that.
Los Angeles. But, KMPC was owned, of course, by the cowboy, Gene Autry. I got to do that for 12 years for Gene after growing up he was one of my heroes as a cowboy hero growing up in the 40s and 50s. And then I got to work for him and got to know him well and used to sit in his booth at Angel Stadium and watch the Angels. He used to sit there and keep score for the Angel games.
Did he?
Yeah. So, of course, he owned the Angels, as you know, for a long time. But, those were great days. And like you say, it's those great stations of the past are a dying breed.
Yeah, we're trying to emulate as best we can those types of shows on our station out here. Wink, we're doing some talks, so we're at least trying to keep some of it alive. But talk a little bit about the CD you have out now and the book, Winking at Life.
Yeah, I have a CD. It's at winkingatlife.com, and it's a CD of narratives some of my favorite narratives over the years. Of course, it's led by deck of cards, which sold a couple of million records for me a few years ago, and we re-recorded that with new background music and everything. And it's at winkingatlife.com. That's the name of the CD. And my book is at winkmartindale.com, and it's just the story of my life and career. It's an autobiography which I wrote, and we make available on my website.
Good website. You have a lot of fun information on there. You can hear some samples of the CD as well. And
you guys getting over the election now?
Yeah, I think we're electioned out down here.
Boy,
but
that was tough. What I mean, that was. I mean, I'm not making a political statement. I'm just saying it seemed like they've been doing that for 2 years, huh?
Yeah, I mean, they just kept kind of rehashing 2000 all the last 4 years in Florida. Actually, Florida came through with relatively little trouble. It was Ohio that had the controversy this year, I guess.
Yeah, in 2000 it was Florida, and this year it was Ohio that was the determining factor. But hopefully they'll pick up the pieces and we can all go forward.
How's it with Arnold out there? How's he doing?
He's doing a great job. I happen to be a fan of his, and I voted for him, and I think he's doing a terrific job.
I really do. I think he's a bright guy. I mean, people don't realize he's very educated, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's very much involved with the people, and he's a people person, and he relates to people well, and he relates to the problems of the people, and he's trying to bring a new feeling of government to Sacramento out here, which is sorely needed.
Absolutely, yeah. The recall situation, that was a turbulent time for you folks out there, I imagine.
He's got a big job ahead of him, though, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Well, Wink Martindale, it's great to talk to you again. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us here on Sarasota and Bradenton area, and hopefully we'll do it again real soon.
Thank you, Doug. My pleasure. Anytime.
Okay. Thank you, Wink.
Okay.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.